And now for my next number, I'd like to return to the
classic. Time.
Hello vinyl community, Alex back again. This is my second take at filming this video because I thought I had everything I needed. Turns out I didn't, so I'm doing this again. I wanted to do this video mainly because I wanted to talk a bit more about the genres that I don't really talk about much on the channel. So I'm going to talk about jazz in this video. I'm just going to show you my top 10 favourite jazz albums, and with that, obviously this list is not set in stone, maybe other than my top 5, because you know, top 5s generally don't change much, but this is I would say my top 10 favourite jazz records as of right now. I don't know what inspired this list. I really don't. I just wanted to talk about it. Jazz is a genre of music that I'm still discovering more about each and every day. So any opportunity I get to discover something new jazz-wise, I'm all for it. So where do I start? I guess with the honourable mentions. First of all, what's playing in the background, I don't know if you can hear it. Alfa Mist's Antiphon, fantastic record, already stretches for hundreds on Discog, so we won't even talk about that. Wynton Marsalis, his self-titled debut, fantastic record there. Dave Brubeck, Time Out, fantastic jazz record. Miles Davis Kind of Blue and Sketches of Spain, love both of those Miles Davis records. Unfortunately, neither of them quite made the cut. John Coltrane's A Love Supreme is an honourable mention. I love that record to pieces, but there is a John Coltrane album I prefer over that one, just my personal taste. Frank Sinatra's Songs for Swinging Lovers, you may not consider it jazz. I would put it in that category, but just because some people wouldn't really consider it jazz. Some people would put it on the crooner or maybe pop or easy listening or whatever. Because of that reason, it's not on the list, but it would have been if it was jazz for everybody. I had something else in mind just a minute ago. I haven't got any notes from my honourable mentions. There's so many good jazz records I could have talked about, but didn't. Oh, Bob James 2. What an album that is. Really wanted to include it in this list, but just missed out. So with that said, let's get into this video. Kicking it off with number 10 for me. And like I said, this is going to differ from person to person, but for me, Ray Charles is what I'd say is my 10th favourite jazz album of all time. Love this record. It just reminds me of my favourite scene from the movie Ray, which is a film I still need to see all the way through, believe it or not. But yeah, love this record. What I'd say is my favourite song from him, but I love this entire album. This French press I had for a steal on eBay. I've talked about it before. Don't talk about it near enough though. But Ray Charles is what I'd say from 1959 is a fantastic record, and I would put it in the jazz category. Ray Charles, of course, fantastic musicianship here, and it's only number 10 because it's one I did discover a little bit later. But what puts this at 10 for me is the emotion behind it. When I discovered Ray Charles for the first time, this is the album that I went to first, and I will never forget my reaction when I listened to What I'd Say for the first time and fell in love with that song, this album, and Ray Charles as a musician himself. So cannot wait to pick up more Ray Charles, and yeah, this is a fantastic record. Just had to get this when it came up on eBay at a good price. So Ray Charles is What I'd Say comes in at number 10 for me. At number 9, an album that came out last year, in 2020. I know, it's been out probably about 6 months or so, and already been number 9 on my list is Nubya Garcia's Source album. Fantastic record. She's British, this is her solo debut, and I cannot wait to see what else she puts out. If it ends up being better, then that's great. It has a sort of feel like it would have come out back in the 70s. It has that kind of feel to what Miles Davis and John Coltrane would have put out back in their prime, so to speak. But Nubya Garcia, British saxophonist, incredible, very spiritual jazz. If you like Kamasi Washington, who's is another honourable mention for this list, by the way, Heaven and Hell's a fantastic album from him. But yeah, Nubya Garcia, if you like Kamasi Washington, you will love her, because she is very similar in the sense that her music can get very spiritual, jazzy at times, and definitely has a vintage, I'm going to use the word vintage here, vintage jazz feel to it. So incredible album from 2020, and easily it was my second favourite album last year, so of course I had to give it another mention there. This is probably I think this is actually the album that did inspire this list, just because I wanted to talk about it again. And so yeah, fantastic album, great musicianship from her. Like I said, I can't wait to see what else she puts out in the future. At number 8 is Donald Byrd, Blackbird. I know, another great album. This one's is more jazz funky, when Nas got the album for New York State of Mind with the intro of Flight Time. Great album, Japanese press. Had to get a Japanese pressing of this one. I don't own many Japanese pressings, but this is of course one I do own. Saw it loads in the VC, already knew about it, just couldn't find one, and then found it out of nowhere and randomly shopping in London before a gig. And yeah, loved this album, had to grab it. When I brought it home and listened to it all the way through, I was captivated, and now it is easily my favourite jazz album. I can't wait to listen to more from Donald Byrd. From what I've listened to so far, this is my favourite from him. But absolutely incredible stuff from him. At number 7, I talked about this guy earlier, but John Coltrane, Giant Steps is my favourite album from him. Obviously everyone knows Love Supreme, everyone knows Giant Steps. I think John Coltrane has like 4 albums that everybody knows, like Blue Train, fantastic album. Another one I want to give an honourable mention to, My Favourite Things, which was my first John Coltrane record, I believe. I'm not sure, but Giant Steps by John Coltrane is my favourite John Coltrane album. Very much in the sense of just an incredible album. I'm not a massive Coltrane fan, I'll put that out there. Like, I like the classic Coltrane stuff, the stuff everybody knows. But he's not the first name I mention when I go to jazz. It's a shame, I know. I would love to discover more from him. But yeah, John Coltrane's Giant Steps. It's an album that I love. It's an album everyone knows. I shouldn't have to go into too much detail here on this one, but yeah, John Coltrane's Giant Steps, number 7 for me in my top 10 favourite jazz albums, I guess I should say. Number 6, and this is one that is also a bit more modern, and a lot of you may question why I put this above classics like Ray Charles, John Coltrane, Donald Byrd and stuff, but I can't really explain it, why I've done it. Gregory Porter's Liquid Spirit is at number 6. I love Gregory's voice. I think he is incredible. One of the best modern jazz vocalists out there. I put him and Candice Springs are easily my two favourite modern day jazz vocalists, and so I had to give a mention to Gregory Porter. The song Liquid Spirit itself is a song that made me get more into jazz, and although I was sort of into it with Miles Davis and the album that I'm going to talk about as my favourite jazz record of all time, I didn't know much jazz outside of that, and this album made me want to discover jazz on a whole new level. So it's because of this album that I like jazz more than I do, or more than I did, and so for that reason I have to talk about it. It's one that may always make my top 10. It's one that I'll always come back to, and it can go up or down on this list depending on how I feel about it, but it would have been in my top 10 if it wasn't for a discovery that I made. Sorry, it would have been in my top 5 if it wasn't for a discovery that I made last year in 2020. But this is still a fantastic album. Very Nat King Cole-esque with a bit of a modern swing type of feel to it. But yeah, just incredible stuff. I know Gregory Porter, Liquid Spirit, not everyone's go-to pick, but for me, if I'm talking jazz, this, in fact, all 10 of these are albums that I go to when I'm in a mood for jazz. But this is just one that I had to talk about because it is like I said, the album that made me want to discover jazz a bit more than what I already knew. So there it is, Gregory Porter, Liquid Spirit. Number 5, and this is the album that knocked Gregory out of the top 5. An album I discovered last year, talked about it quite a few times already. Aquabec's Blue and Sentimental. Played it 3 times the same night I got it home, because it was a blind buy for me, and I cannot get over how much I loved this album. Very chilled, very nice. Aquabec, obviously on tenor sax. Just incredible stuff. Really, really incredible. Didn't realise Nas Nomad had already showed it when I bought it. I knew I recognised it. I didn't recognise it, I just knew the Blue Note label. But yeah, Aquabec, absolutely incredible album. Hands down now in my top 5 favourites, and with good reason. It's an incredible album. And this and No Pure Garcia, out of all the albums I bought last year, they're 2 of the ones I still haven't filed away because I'm still playing them so much that I just have them out because I know I'm going to play them sometime soon. But yeah, Aquabec's Blue and Sentimental, fantastic album. That's my 5th favourite jazz album of all time, and for one I've had about 4 months or so, it's ace. Number 4 goes to Thelonious Monk, Monk's Dream. That's right, I wanted to talk about him. He's a fantastic piano player. This is great piano jazz. I recommend every time we've got some Thelonious Monk in the shop I work in, I'm always recommending him to people who want to discover a bit more jazz. He's very good. Bebop jazz is fantastic. This is the 2013 reissue, the audiophile reissue, which contains the original version of the song Monk's Dream. Because the original version is only 3 minutes long, but the actual Monk's Dream is about 6.5 minutes. The version that made the album anyway. But yeah, this is an incredible album from 1962, I think. Yeah, 1962. Obviously a 2013 reissue, 180 gram audiophile quality pressing, but just an incredible album. Love this album from Thelonious Monk, and one I'll always play, so yeah, cannot get enough of this album. That's why it's in my top 4. Even before I had it on vinyl, it was in my top 4. I just love it. Incredible. Wish I could get an OG pressing of that, but obviously my budget stretches to that, and I'll settle with that because the pressing quality is incredible. Into my top 3, obviously, keep in mind this list, I forgot to mention at the beginning, this list is my opinion. We're all going to have different opinions on what our top 10s are going to be. I would have put Moaning by Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers on this list, but I don't own a copy of that album, and I only know the title track, Moaning. But if I ever get a copy and listen to it all the way through, then I'll let you guys know what I think of it, and maybe it could knock Ray Charles off the list or something, I don't know, but we'll see. I'd really like the song Moaning, but just so we're aware, that album could have made the list, just haven't listened to it all the way through, and that's why it didn't quite make the list, but it is an honourable mention. But anyway, top 3, let's get into it. Number 3 is Wayne Shorter's Odyssey of Iska. Another very spiritual jazz album. Another Blue Note release. Yeah. This album was another blind buy, literally going for a phase of wanting to get more jazz in my collection. It was on Blue Note, which I knew. So I just bit the bullet and got it, and absolutely incredible. Blown away by this. Cannot get enough of Wayne Shorter, and I'm still going through the rest of his catalogue, but so far from what have listened to, this is still my favourite from him. I love this album, can't get enough of Wayne Shorter's Odyssey of Iska, so that's why it makes my top 3 at number 3. Just an incredible jazz record, cannot get enough of this. I think he's fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. And obviously Wayne Shorter was famously part of the group Weather Report, which is how I discovered him in the first place, but I didn't realise I knew the name until I looked at the back of one of my until I went back and read up on Weather Report and read up on Wayne Shorter and where I knew him from and stuff, so that was it. Wayne Shorter comes in at number 3. Right. Now, we're getting to my top 2 here, and these two are, I will say it now, these two are the only two on this list I'll say is set in stone. I want to say my top 5 is, but that can vary depending on like what mood I'm in and stuff. But my top 2, I don't think my top 2 is ever going to change. Number 2 is the Miles Davis album that did make my list, over kind of Blue and Sketches of Spain and all those other classic Miles Davis albums that everybody knows. Bitches Brew is my favourite Miles Davis album. Incredible stuff, of course, here. Got a bunch of musicians together, gave them a key to play in, they all played in that key, and I'm not a big fan of free jazz, but this is one album that I love. I don't know if it's considered free jazz. This is what I would think of as free jazz, because it was pretty much, there was no sheet music for this, everyone just played, and yeah, absolutely incredible album. 6 tracks, 2 LP set, but absolutely phenomenal musicianship here from everybody involved. Can't get enough of this Miles Davis album, and this is the reason. Once I heard this, I knew jazz was a genre that, like, obviously Gregory Porter, if you want to discover jazz a bit more, this is the album that really boosted my love for jazz and made it a genre that I want to learn more about, want to discover more. And so anytime people talk to me about jazz, I listen, and it's because of this album, and I can't get enough of it. So yeah, Miles Davis, Bitches Brew comes in at number 2. Now number 1, and some of you may know this already, because I think this is in my top 10 favourite albums of all time. Now Miles Davis Bitches Brew is in my top 20, no doubts about that. But this album's number 1, and when Tim put this in my hand, when Tim from Hiding's Vinyl put this in my hands when we went digging in 2019, I just had to, I just couldn't pass it up. I've passed this album, even though it's my favourite jazz record, I'd already passed it up twice. I wasn't doing it a third time. Headhunters, Herbie Hancock. Phenomenal album. This album itself is the sole reason that I even thought of listening to jazz. I used to think jazz was not a genre of music for me at all, and then I discovered this. Granted, it was through DJ Jazzy Jeff that I discovered this. DJ Jazzy Jeff had an episode of Crate Diggers on YouTube. He was going through his collection, showing a few bits. Had this in the background. I saw it, listened to it, was blown away by it, and ever since then, this is the reason that I even thought of listening to jazz even entered my mind. And so, yeah, Headhunters by Herbie Hancock. While some would not put it in jazz, or would put it more in funk, I would put it in jazz funk. I put jazz funk in my jazz section. So yeah, Herbie Hancock's Headhunters is my favourite jazz album of all time, and with good reason, because it's an incredible record, it really is. And for this reason, we're even discussing this list right now. So there it is, Herbie Hancock's Headhunters comes in at number 1. So with that all said and done, that's it for this video. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know down in the comments what your 10 favourite jazz records are, and if there's any more top 10s or any other videos you guys would like to see, because I'm always interested to know. So yeah, with that, like I said, with that said and done, that's it for this video. Guys, thanks so much for tuning back in. Subscribe if you're new here, make sure the bell's turned on and all that good stuff so you never miss an upload. And with that, I'll see you guys again very soon. Bye.